Hi, my name is Erika. I'm so delighted to talk to all the Research Challenge students, teachers, and parents this year. I learned so much from doing research projects in middle school and high school. This is a picture of me in high school working on the cluster I had built in my parents' attic for a science fair project. And this is a more recent picture of me in the lab at MIT, where I just finished my PhD in biological engineering. This time, I'm not in an attic, I'm in a warm room, and I'm setting up a protein engineering experiment. Being a research scientist and getting a PhD at MIT all happened because I got hooked on science through the Research Challenge. Participation in this event led to many others like the New Mexico Supercomputing Challenge and ISEF and Science Talent Search. These competitions were so much fun, and I met so many other students who think science and engineering is awesome, some of whom I'm still friends with today. And I also earned a lot of awards and scholarships that helped set me up for a fantastic education. And this all happened because I had caring teachers and amazing parents who encouraged me to do science fair in middle school and then supported me as I got hooked. So if you're like Ms. Arnold, my seventh grade science teacher, and you're here supporting a student, thank you so, so much. I know that everything is more complicated because of COVID, but please keep doing what you're doing and know that you are really appreciated. I want to tell you just a little bit about what I've been working on the past few years. I mentioned that I work in biological engineering, and in particular, I'm interested in engineering the very basis of how biology works by modifying the genetic code itself. So, how does the genetic code work? So, just like us, when we build things out of Lego, biology builds things out of basic building blocks. In biology's case, the basic building blocks are called amino acids, and biology takes those building blocks and strings them together, and out pops a little molecular machine, a protein, that has some important function. The rods and cones in your eyes that detect light, those are proteins. The antibodies in your blood that identify viruses, those are also proteins. There are hundreds of thousands of these little molecular machines in your body making it go. And the instructions for how to make each of these molecular machines are written down in your DNA. Each gene in your genome contains instructions for how to make one of these molecular machines. And one of the most fascinating things about life is that all life on Earth, every single living organism in existence, has agreed on exactly how they're going to write down those instructions. They all use the same genetic code to write down the instructions for how to manufacture proteins. And this is a little bit of a stumper because there are more possible genetic codes that life could have picked than there are atoms in our galaxy. So it's rather surprising that everybody agreed that they wanted this one in particular. And on top of that, if you look at the basic building blocks themselves, they do a good job, like we're all alive, right? But chemically speaking, they're actually kind of boring. One way to see this very simply is to just look at the chemical elements that appear in amino acids on a periodic table. Look at all this good stuff, and yet only 5 of these elements appear in the basic building blocks of life, which is really too bad because, as you probably know if you've played with Lego, you can kind of build anything out of basic Lego. But if you want to make something that's extra cool and looks especially much like what you were trying to build, then it really helps to have some of the special Legos, the ones that are like highly specific. And the normal genetic code, it doesn't have those. Now, this is a big limitation that people in biological engineering are coming to appreciate. We've been trying to make our own proteins, our own little molecular machines that perform functions we want. So, curing disease, insulin and interferon are both proteins that can be used as therapeutics. Or degrading plastic. We would love to create proteins that are enzymes that speed up chemical reactions that would otherwise take forever to happen. And we're discovering what we all knew from playing with Legos as kids, which is that every one of these cases, along with too many other examples to name, it would help a lot to be able to include a couple special building blocks in those custom proteins. Okay, so how do we change the genetic code so that we can do this? What I studied during my PhD was a strategy for making the genetic code 4 times bigger, which would give us room for all sorts of new building blocks. How does it work? Here's an example of the normal genetic code. Each of the building blocks has a little name that's 3 letters of DNA long. And you can write down the instructions for building the molecular machine by just naming the building blocks in order that you want them to be assembled. That's it. Now, the strategy I was investigating for expanding the genetic code is just using longer names. So we'll use 4-letter names instead, and you will suddenly have 4 times more possible names for building blocks, and thus you can support more of those building blocks, including some with special properties. And in fact, in my next project, I'm working on applying these tools to make more effective therapeutics. And I want to close by pointing out that there's something very special about science and engineering, which is that it both helps you understand how the world works, and it also gives you abilities to change it, sometimes in ways that are very big or very fundamental and can have a huge impact. If you're a student who has done a research project for the Research Challenge, congratulations. Not only did you persevere in the face of all sorts of crazy obstacles put in your path by the COVID pandemic, but you are also not very far away from being able to have a real impact on the world. And in fact, many of you may already be there. So congratulations.